are live. It is November 8th, 2009. And if there was any doubt that this Copenhagen deal, this global climate change hoax was about world government, we will go over the Prime Minister of Australia's own words, his own address to the nation, where he cops to it. There's no conspiracy theory here, folks. He says the only way we're going to solve this thing is world government. He addresses the global conspiracy theorists by name. He goes after Moncton in here. And for those out of the loop, they don't know who Lord Christopher Moncton is. Moncton has really been the most vocal whistleblower of this Copenhagen Treaty. We've been warning you about it for, I believe, 6 to 9 months now, when it was first on Reuters and they were talking about this global climate treaty. He actually went in, read the bill. We did the same here. Over 24 times the word government is used in the bill. Over a dozen times they refer to global tax schemes, carbon markets. And again, this government is not elected by you and me. It's elected by the already unelected world government. So the unelected world government will then appoint other leaders to tax you for pumping gas, for having a second car, for having a dog, for having a second car, for having a vacation home. See, this is about saying you're bad, and it's even in the new Rolling Stone, by the way. I believe it's Naomi Klein has written this article where Uncle Sam sits in front of all these other smaller nations, and there's a big smokestack coming out of his American hat because the Americans are bad, and this is the last chance to save the world. And again, Rudd says the same thing, the Australian Prime Minister. This is our last chance, and they try to guilt you into believing the lie. You see, if you're not for this, you're against the children and the grandchildren of this community. You're not here to save the world. No, we're here to save everybody from another 20 to 25% tax on their entire lives. Right now, people are getting hip to it. I go to pump gas, and they outright tell you, you're going to be paying 70 to 75 cents more a gallon if this cap and trade thing goes through. But they'll just pass it under the cover of night. People said, again, the health care bill will never pass Congress, past Congress. It went through. Pelosi and her little tribe of demons got it through. And you better believe there will be death panels. They're already using them in this country. But now they're going to force you to get health insurance. They're going to say that forced inoculations are part of the plan. You're not going to be able to say no to those shots. They'll go through more color of law, more legislation to say, oh, you have to take the swine flu vaccine now that we're at pandemic level 6. And remember, they first said, Obama got up in front of everybody, said, this isn't mandatory for anybody. And then it comes out in Reuters, everybody in the military, whether you're a National Guardsman, you're in the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the regular Army, you're taking it. And if you're in the Department of Defense, you're taking it as well. This is a mainstream media. And then they tried to say, oh, we're not giving it to the medical personnel. It's not going to be mandatory. Then in New York State, a bunch of the nurses had to go to City Hall, over 500 of them. Over 500 made it to City Hall in Albany. They sued, they won, and it wasn't mandatory. See, all you have to do is read in between the lines. Dr. Oz gets on CNN, and he blatantly says that him and the others have to take it because it's been mandated by the hospital. Then you continue to listen. And she said, well, are you going to give your kids this? Well, I've got 4 children, but I'm not Dr. Oz at home. I'm Mr. Oz, and me and my wife have decided not to inoculate our children. Really? And in a sick way, it's good that cheerleader actually took the shot and got injured, because that cheerleader video of her going around in the local news and then an Inside Edition, this person who was an Olympic athlete being crippled by the shot may have saved millions and millions of lives out there. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas. We're going to come back. We're going to analyze Rudd's statements on global government.
Circles if you wanna build a life, but I don't wanna make a plan for a day far away. While I'm young and while I'm able, all I want gonna do is...
We are back. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas on weekly Sunday nights, 6 to 9 Central Time. You get the podcast over at the InfoWarrior.com, or you can see the live video feed over at PrisonPlanet.tv. I want to read some of the Prime Minister of Australia, Rudd's address, because this is important. And by the way, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to fit it into the movie, but I definitely have Rudd talking about the New World Order. I have the clip. He did so, I think it was in 06 or 07, maybe 08. I'm going to have to check on it. Maybe we'll fit it in there. I literally now have hundreds of clips of prominent people talking about the quote-unquote New World Order. That's their term for this. This is not Jason Bermas' term. I didn't just invent it out of the blue because I like the way it sounds. No, in this film, you're going to see Paul Wolfowitz talking about it, Michael Mullen talking about it, Wesley Clark talking about it, Bill Clinton talking about it, George H.W. Bush discussing the New World Order, Richard Nixon talking about it, of course, Henry Kissinger talking about it as well, and so much more. The movie's really coming around. If you haven't seen the trailer yet, check out Invisible Empire over at YouTube. All right, let me just read word for word what this guy is stating. And remember, it's about guilting everybody into saying, we're the problem, we need to save the world. If we don't, we're against the children. Australia and the world today stand at a critical juncture in our national and global strategies to tackle climate change. It is around 20 days until the Senate votes on the Australian government's carbon pollution reduction scheme. And believe me, it is a scheme. 20 days until the most important vote on our national strategy to tackle climate change. 20 days away from the vote on the government's cap-and-trade emissions trading system, which both sides of politics have recognized as the lowest cost way to tackle climate change. See, it's about cost. And he really reveals himself in the next sentence. Check it out. And we are just 31 days away from the Copenhagen Conference of Parties, a historic moment to forge a global deal to put a global price on dun-dun-dun-dun carbon. To put a global price on carbon. And that's why we're going to play this clip out of CNBC where they call for a new global currency, which they already have. It's called the Special Drawing Rights Unit. It does not have a physicality, but it's what the IMF is now issuing. It is the global currency. But we need a new global currency. We need a new global government in a new world order. That's CNBC talking about it. We're going to get to that shortly. But here it is. Put a global price on carbon. When you strip away all the political rhetoric, all the political excuses, there are two stark choices, action or inaction. Action now, not delayed action. He's saying, we need to do this now. We need to put a global price on carbon so we can tax the world. And you're going to need a global system to do that. In fact, I'm going to skip over a ton of this stuff. And we're going to talk about how it has to be a global government. Let's see. The legion of climate change skeptics all across the world, and they happily play with our children's future. Oh, our children. We're against the children. I must hate kids. I must hate them. The clock is ticking away for the planet, but the climate change skeptics simply don't care. The vested interests at work are simply too great. How about the vested interest in freedom, in democracy, in a humanity not paying taxes for nothing? For nothing. Carbon is breathed by plants and animals out there. It's part of the life force of the universe. Thank you very much. So I don't know what this guy's talking about, but he's either drank the Kool-Aid or stands to make millions and possibly billions of dollars in this cap-and-trade scheme. The clock is ticking away for the planet, but the climate change skeptics simply do not care. The vested interests at work are simply too great. It has been more than 30 years, and this shows their patience, 30 years since the first World Climate Conference. Then 20 years ago, they made the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. See, this is a step towards world government. This empowers the UN further. 17 years ago, they had the Rio Summit under United Nations framework. And in 2007, the IPCC put out yet another panel on global climate change. And if you look at it, they have really pumped up the propaganda. See, they did this throughout while we were children. You know, we're in school. They're first telling us, well, it's not really carbon at this point. It's chlorofluorocarbons, COCs, and hairspray is bad, and you're all bad. But now they've changed it to carbon, so it's much broader, so they can tax everybody. But it's already been ingrained in our psyche because we've been taught this since we were 10 years old. But now with this new administration, the hope and change in America, they can pull forward. And it shows that this has really been an accelerated pace over the last 18 months. in June of 08, September of 08, December of 08, and this March, they've just had more and more white papers and reviews coming out saying, we need to do something. We need to put a price on this carbon. So I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to give you the real deal. We're going to go to Lord Monckton. This was on C-SPAN like a week and a half ago, where he tells you the nitty-gritty, the true state of affairs, what's really going on with this climate change ordeal.